You just paid $3.65 for a coffee, and Starbucks actually lost money on that cup. That's not a mistake, it's a 700-year-old trick. 600 years before Starbucks even existed, you already figured this out, in a different life, a different century, with a piece of wood and a debt you never asked for. Stick around till the end, because I'm going to show you exactly where the $100 billion actually goes, and I promise you it's not the coffee. Level 1. The Trap. It's 1390. You're 26 years old, and your father just died. He left you two things, a tavern, and a debt bigger than the building it sits on. Here's the part that's going to sting right away. You don't get to set your own price. The king does. 1 penny a quart, fixed by law, and it doesn't matter what barley costs you this year, because the price on your board stays exactly the same no matter what. Last winter barley jumped 2 counties over after a bad harvest, and nobody adjusted your penny for it. Nobody ever does. Twice a month, a man walks through your door called an ale conner. He dips a stick into your barrel, tastes what's inside, checks the price chalked on your board, and if either one is off, he finds you right there in front of your own customers. So think about where that leaves you. 0 pricing power, 0 margin, and 0 way out. This isn't a bad year, either. This is just the deal. Every single year, rain or plague or war, the price never moves. Feels like you're failing, doesn't it? You're not. You're actually about to invent Starbucks, and here's why. 600 years later, you're staring at the exact same number, just wearing a different outfit. $3.65 for a coffee, and once you strip out the bean, the cup, the lid, and the labor, there's almost nothing left. Analysts even have a name for it, a loss leader, dressed up as a coffee cup. Bean prices spike that year too, and nobody adjusts your $3.65 either. Funny how that keeps happening, 600 years apart. But you don't panic, because some part of you already understands something nobody said out loud yet. The drink was never the business. The drink is the trap. So guess it right now, before I tell you, what percentage of Starbucks' entire revenue do you think comes from drinks under $4? Drop your guess in the comments, because you're probably wrong, and I'll prove it to you in a few minutes. Level 2. The Room. Tonight, though, you're barely selling any ale at all. There's a wool merchant named Aldous sitting at the table by your fire, same table he takes every single week, and he's not there for the drink in front of him. He's there because there's no other roofed, heated room in this entire town where 2 merchants can sit for 2 hours and actually close a deal in peace. No library, no office, no coffee shop. Your tavern is the only public room this town has got. Last month, 2 neighbors settled a land dispute at your back table, simply because there was nowhere else official enough to do it properly. Next week it'll be a marriage contract, witnessed over a round of ale, because your fire is the only room in town warm enough to fit 4 people and a scribe comfortably. And here's the part that should bother you. You don't even own the building. Your landlord does. He takes his rent whether you sell 10 cups tonight or 100, and he's never once worked a cold night inside these walls in his life. Hang on to that because he's the one who actually gets rich off all this, not you, and we're coming straight back to him a little later. Nearly 600 years from now, someone's going to coin a phrase that doesn't exist yet in your century. The third place. Not home, not work, somewhere else entirely, a space you're allowed to just sit in. That future business will spend more money on chairs and outlets and Wi-Fi than it spends on beans, because the room really is the actual product, and the coffee is just your ticket in the door. And they'll pick every single location the exact same way you picked this fire, not the quiet side street, but the crossroads, the corner everybody's already walking past on their way somewhere else. There's another reason nobody wants to leave once they sit down. And it's got nothing to do with comfort. Travelers passing through your tavern carry news with them. A shipwreck 2 ports over. A bad harvest 3 counties out. A toll road that just changed hands overnight. Sitting by your fire isn't just a warm seat. It's the only place in town where real information actually arrives. 600 years later, that same hunger just looks like Wi-Fi and a wall outlet. Same idea, wearing a router instead of a traveler's boots, because people were never just buying a seat. They were buying a plug into everything happening outside that door. So, think you've got the whole trick figured out now? You don't. Look over at Aldous again. He's not actually paying you tonight. Level 3. The Stick. You carve a notch into a piece of wood behind your bar, a tally stick, 11 months of Aldous's tabs cut right into the grain, no coins ever changing hands, just debt quietly piling up night after night. He owes you, which means he has to keep coming back. Walk 2 streets over to a rival tavern, and he loses this table, loses his credit, and starts over completely from zero as a stranger somewhere new. So that stick was never really tracking what he owes you at all. It's tracking whether he can ever actually leave. Now fast forward to your phone. Right now, tonight. You load $10 onto the Starbucks app, and that money sits on their books, not really yours anymore while it's sitting there, interest-free, for as long as you don't spend it. Add up everyone doing that exact same thing at the same time, and you get well over $1 billion sitting inside Starbucks accounts at any given moment, money that isn't technically theirs yet, and money they get to use completely free, because you thought you were just topping up an app. Same tally stick. Completely new material. And it doesn't stop with the money you load either. Stars stack up, tiers unlock, free drinks sit one purchase away and then reset if you don't show up in time. That's not really a rewards program. That's your tally stick, gamified, just one more reason to walk back in tomorrow instead of the place 2 blocks over. If you're new here, by the way, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because next time we crack open a completely different set of books, and trust me, the trick only gets bigger from here. There's one more lock, and it's the quiet one nobody talks about. Back in your tavern, regulars get a table, and if they lose the tavern, they lose the table and the standing that came with it. At Starbucks, the barista knows your name, knows your order down to the extra shot and the exact temperature, and that's not just friendly service, that's your fireside table, wearing a name tag. 1 penny back in 1390, priced against what a laborer earned in a day, lands somewhere around 10 or 15 modern dollars, which means all this, just to sit by your fire, was paying almost exactly what you'd pay for a specialty drink at Starbucks today. 600 years apart, and it's the same number, for the same reason, that's just what it costs to stay in the room a little longer. Level 4. Who gets rich? So follow the money all the way to the end, because it never actually stops with the person pouring the drink. You pour the ale, you take the risk, a bad harvest, a slow night, a fine from the ale conner, all of it lands squarely on you. Your landlord takes his rent regardless. Your brewer takes his cut regardless. Whatever's left over, you keep, and some weeks that's next to nothing. There's even one more layer sitting above all three of you. The guild that controls the malt supply decides who gets a fair price and who gets quietly squeezed, a choke point sitting above even your landlord. Now watch that exact same shape play out in a strip mall, 600 years later. A barista pours your drink for close to minimum wage, and over the past few years, thousands of them have started organizing store by store specifically over pay and understaffing. A landlord collects rent whether that store sells 10 coffees or 1,000, same deal your landlord's got, except now there's an entire real estate department behind him, whose only job is picking corners exactly the way you picked your fire, just at the scale of tens of thousands of buildings at once. And Starbucks has the exact same choke point too, just wearing a different outfit. Enough buying power over entire coffee growing regions that a small independent shop down the street simply can't touch their price, no matter how good their coffee actually is. And above everyone else sits a shareholder, holding a piece of a company that's been worth more than $100 billion. Let's actually do the math, because a claim like that needs a number behind it. One store, 1 year, $2 million in revenue. Beans, milk, and cups, gone. About $600,000 wiped straight off the top. Labor, gone, another $600,000. Rent and overhead, gone, another few $100,000 on top of that. What's left is thin. One single store barely clears real money. But multiply that by tens of thousands of stores. Add over $1 billion of your money sitting there completely free. Add a real estate network worth more than the coffee it actually sells, and suddenly it isn't a coffee company anymore. It's a landlord, selling a habit, wearing an apron. Remember your guess from earlier? Drinks under $4? The real number is close to 12%. Your guess was probably way higher than that, and that's the trick working on you right now. The exact same way it worked on Aldous. The other 88% is higher ticket drinks, food, and you walking back through that door over and over, thanks to the exact loyalty stick sitting in your pocket. Same as Aldous, just one drink, 11 months straight. The person doing the visible work keeps the thinnest slice. The person who owns the room keeps the rest. Level 5. The collapse. Every business built this way carries the exact same crack running underneath it. The room has to stay worth more than the drink, and the second it isn't, the whole thing splits open. Back in 1390, your risk is total and it can hit with zero warning. The assize can tighten overnight in a bad harvest and wipe out your margin with no appeal whatsoever. The plague can shut your doors for months, and when the room is the product, closing the room closes everything. Not just one part of it, all of it, gone. And 2 bad years back to back isn't a rough patch. It's over. And if the town ever decides your taverns become trouble, your license simply disappears. And that was never your call to make in the first place. 600 years later, you're staring at the exact same crack, just with different names attached. Too many stores open too close together start quietly eating each other alive, a problem serious enough that hundreds of underperforming locations have had to close. A labor movement pushes directly on the one cost line that's always been thinnest. And regulators in multiple states are now asking a very specific question about that $1 billion+ of your money sitting unclaimed on the books. Whose is that, really, if you never come back for it? That's an entire quiet profit engine sitting inside a coffee company that a state government somewhere is actively trying to lay a claim to right now. Strip away 6 centuries of stone walls and apps, and it all comes down to one sentence, said twice. Build your business on the room, the float, and the tab, instead of the thing actually sitting in the cup, and you're exposed the second somebody decides to lean on the room instead of the drink. There's an even quieter version of this collapse, and it already happened to you once before. When real coffee houses opened in England in the 1600s, offering the same fire, the same information, the same seats, but none of the drunken disorder that periodically got taverns shut down by magistrates, a huge chunk of that respectable foot traffic simply walked across the street. You didn't lose because your ale got worse. You lost because somewhere else offered the exact same room with less baggage attached. The room didn't change, only the address did. And right now, Starbucks is watching that exact same thing happen all over again. Co-working spaces, remote work cafes, even libraries redesigning themselves specifically to say come sit here instead. It's quieter, it's free, and the Wi-Fi's just as good. The drink was never the moat. The room was always the moat, and a moat like that can always get rebuilt somewhere else. So you thought you were just buying a coffee. What you were actually buying was a seat, a running tab, and a small repeating fee for the right to stay a little longer in a room somebody else profits from, every single time you walk back through that door. You didn't know the mechanism had a name 600 years ago, notching Aldous' debt into a piece of wood by firelight, but the guy in Seattle knew exactly what he was building, and he said so out loud, on the record, the third place. Neither business ever actually needed you to notice, and honestly, that was always the whole point, because a good trick never announces itself. That's the whole model, working exactly as intended, in a market town in 1390, and in a strip mall this morning, 600 years and one supply chain apart.